Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our How to Ace the Interview skill session. Ms. Rosser is going to be leading off with this. And if you don't know, Ms. Rosser is an awesome person to work with. She knows her stuff. And I love it because she is not going to bore you. What I do need you to do is I need you to make sure that you are taking a few notes. Make sure you're able to ask some questions, because a lot of times you don't understand that when you go into an interview, a lot of times before you even get to sit at the table, and before you even get the opportunity to answer the first question or to be asked the first question, you done killed yourself in the interview. The people are looking at you like, really? Okay. And you're wondering what's going on. Well, this session is specifically to help you horn up your skills so that when you get to an interview, you know exactly what to expect. You know exactly how to act. You know exactly how to address the people, you know, that are going to be interviewing you. It's very, very important. Your whole entire demeanor, your language, your body language, all of that stuff will help you ace the interview, even if you have no idea how to do the job. So we're going to take a listen and we're going to find out what it is we need to know about acing an interview. So go ahead on. I want to introduce you to Miss Charice Rosser. Take it away, Miss Lady.
Thank you, Ms. Zalakoffer, for that warm introduction and the objective of this particular workshop. I just want to say thank you for providing me this opportunity to speak with our students about something that's important to everybody at this platform, because for me to have had to be in the position that I'm currently in, and Ms. Zalakoffer, Ms. Sledge, and Mr. Hardy, and Ms. Cooper, we had to have an interview and we had to prepare for the interview. So when I was a college student, I was not given these opportunities. I had to kind of learn the hard way, and programs like TRIO and Student Support Services, they provide opportunities so that you can be prepared, okay? So first, I want to start out, hold on. My thing wants, okay. I want us to have something to remember, that all of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And that is by Walt Disney. And do you know who Walt Disney is? Now I'm engaging, so I like for the students to talk and speak, because I like to have a all-inclusive engaging session. So do you know who Walt Disney is and what did he do that was so profound?
I'm going to keep an eye on the chat.
Okay.
Winter Jones and Michael Brown says, yes, they do know who Walt Disney is.
Okay. And what did he do that was so significant?
You ladies and gentlemen can unmute yourself and answer the question.
Yes, please. Because this is going to be an engaging activity.
Don't let me answer the question, y'all. Come on.
Walt Disney is the founder of Disney World, Mickey Mouse, all of those things that that was part of our childhood, okay? And he had a dream, like you have a dream, and we have dreams. He pursued them. So we're going to first start off by talking about the interview process. There are 3 different processes in the interview process. The first
process, excuse me, can I interrupt? I have a response from Winter. She says he was a film producer Justin says that he was the founding father of Disney Studios.
Yes, he was. Thank you, Justin and Winter. I really appreciate that.
And I have one more to add.
Okay.
He actually has a hospital in Orlando, and it is one of the best research hospitals in Florida.
Listen, exactly. And he had a dream. The vision that you just shared, these phenomenal projects with the hospital, with Disneyland, creating films, it all started as a dream, just like you have dreams today. Okay. And a part of your dream is you're going to have to interview, and then you're going to have to engage with people. Okay, not just on a platform of work as far as employment, but if you're going to have your own business, you're going to have to understand the interview process, because a part of your dream is going to include people, and you're going to have to know how to interview as well as be interviewed. So this perspective is going to come from being interviewed. Okay, so you got 3 stages, 3 phases, 3 processes. You have a pre-interview. We're going to talk about the pre-interview, preparing for the interview. We're going to actually also talk about an actual interview. And we're going to also talk about post-interview, which was what do you do after the interview? Okay. Part of the interview process, you have to prepare. Okay. One way you could start preparing with COVID, a lot of interviews now are not as face-to-face. You may have some interviews that are virtual, okay? And so you have to familiarize yourself with online chat platforms like Google Meet, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. All of these are different platforms that employers, businesses, and agencies are using to interview potential candidates for whatever position that they are offering at the time. That has become more and more popular since COVID. People are working from home now more. And so being familiar with those platforms is going to be extremely important. Also, prepare your technology. I use myself as an example. Prior to launching the workshop, Student Support Services, Ms. Sledge, Ms. Zolkoff, and Mr. Hardy, we all worked together to make sure that everything was running prior to, so we wouldn't have to have any technical issues going on during the presentation. So test your technology the day before, okay? If you could get a friend or someone to kind of make sure that your camera is working properly, all of that, because that can really help you relieve some anxiety. Because if you about to do a virtual interview and you haven't done all of this and things don't go well, that can really have an impact on your presentation as far as being a potential candidate for that position. Also, prepare your background. Add a professional virtual background to your computer. And if you don't have, sometimes you may have kids, and it may be a little, things on the floor. Be mindful of that, or go to a blank wall. If you have pets, make sure that they are not in the area when you're doing it, because if you have something like a cat or a dog, they're barking in the background, that could be a distraction, a major distraction. All right, you gotta know how to look, okay? Even do a virtual interview, you have to present yourself, very professional, okay? Reasons: you want to look professional. You just don't want to present yourself as someone who is not well. A lot of times when you're disheveled, your nails are dirty, your hair is not groomed, that can present that you may not be a good candidate, and that is your time where you can make a first impression. Okay. Also, when you look good, smell good, your self-confidence, your attitude, your whole mindset is different. Okay. As far as your attire, ladies, please be mindful of the length of your dress. I recommend below your knees, because if you're in a professional setting, you don't want to come across, especially if you're doing a face-to-face interview, as unprofessional. And so no splits, no slits. Keep your colors dark blue, black, gray, and white. Those types of colors are neutral colors. When you're looking at the brighter colors, it can, depending on the culture of the organization, it may work, but to be safe, it's always good to wear dark colors. Okay. I wouldn't recommend animal print, florals, because it can kind of send off a message, and you want to come across as professional as possible. Not to say that it is not appropriate, but prior to interviewing, it's always good to have an idea of the dress code and the culture of the agency, organization, or business that you are trying to work for. Now, some agencies and some businesses, being colorful and self-expression may be a bonus, but make sure that that is the culture of the organization or the company that you're looking at, if you have a tendency to, if you pursue interview in that fashion. Okay, so we're going to actually start talking about the interview process now. All right, so how do you answer the question, tell me about yourself? That's going to be one of the main questions that an employer will ask you. Okay, and you're like, how do I answer that question? I recommend that you begin with your educational background, okay, and your major, your minor, and how you became interested in that field. So I use myself as an example. I'm a graduate of Elizabeth City State University, and my major was social work, and I became interested in the field of social work because I grew up in an underserved community, and I wanted to give back in some capacity. And another way you can add on to that regarding your education is skills I've learned throughout school projects. So if you're involved in different organizations and memberships, if you are HCC ambassador, if you are SGA officer or involved in SGA, if you're involved in Pride, student support services, all of these different types of programs and opportunities for leadership and leadership development, talk about those experiences in the interview, because that will also give a positive impression to your employer that, first of all, you value education, and second, that while you're being educated, you was engaged in your school and was able to develop relationships there that will build your personal and your professional development. All right. Also, you can talk about your work experience. If you currently have a job, discuss how that your current position is, those skills will build on the particular position that you're looking at or that you're applying for. Focus on transferable skills. And transferable skills are those skills that you gain from one position that can be transferred to another position. I use my profession as an example. My first job was working with young ladies in a residential group home. And working in that type of capacity, I learned a lot about my interpersonal skills, how to talk to individuals who were in distress. Also, I learned how to be organized. All of those different skills like organization, working well with others, being a team player. Those are transferable skills. And if depending on the position that you're working, that you're seeking, those transferable skills will give your employer insight as far as your working capacity. You want to expand on that. You also want to talk about your strengths, your key strengths. Based on research on the organization, like I said, you have to do your research and know the type of business and organization that you are applying to, and speak about and compliment yourself on how your strengths can benefit that position, that department, that agency, that business, that organization. Okay. I think one of my strengths is the ability to listen and to advocate for others. Okay. I had to learn that in the various roles that I've had in the past. So saying that I would say that I'm courageous, because sometimes in advocating for others, I have to say those uncomfortable things that people may not be receptive to, but as far as advocating for someone, I have to be able to articulate a person's needs in a way that whoever I'm sharing that information to will be receptive to assist, support, or whatever I'm requesting from the individual. Another way how you could tell about yourself, tell by why you're interested in the organization. I use my experience at Halifax Community College. When I was interviewing for that position, I was interested in working at Halifax Community College because it was going to put me in a different capacity and use my skill sets in a different capacity where I can help young people. I enjoy working with young people because when I was young, it was very difficult for me to navigate the system. And a part of my passion for doing what I do at the community college is with me coming from an underserved community, I'm in a position where I can really help individuals navigate a very powerful entity in the community, which is at the community college, and how and how that will benefit the organization, because I can relate to a lot of the students who may be trying to overcome poverty, who may be trying to overcome educational gaps, all of those different things. So when you're in an interview, these are 4 different strategies on how you can answer, tell me about yourself. All right, so when you are interviewing, you have to, I recommend the CAR technique. The CAR technique is broken down to context, action, result, and relate. Okay. Now, in majority in your interview, your employer may ask you a question like this: tell me about a time where you had a disagreement with a colleague. Those questions are specific because it will educate the people who are asking those questions, which is the employer, how you respond in situations where you may have a conflict or a disagreement. The reality of the matter is if you're going to be having a job, you're going to have conflict with someone. You may not agree with someone, and you're going to have to talk about and describe that situation in an interview. Now, that is not a trick question. That is a question that you have to be prepared to ask, because employees know if they have a human resource department that you can get all kinds of allegations, and they need to have an idea on how you resolve conflict. So the CAR technique is the technique that I recommend. Got to talk about context. You got to describe the specific event or situation. All right. Give enough detail for the interview to understand, and draw from campus work and community experiences. So, for instance, if the question is, tell me about a time where you may have had a conflict with someone of authority. And I'm going to use this example of a situation that happened to me. It did not happen to me at Halifax, but it happened to me at a previous employer. And the situation was I was working in a medical facility, and the doctor did not agree with my recommendations because he felt that the patient was ready for discharge. But after engaging with the patient and speaking with the family, I didn't challenge the doctor. I asked the doctor, would they consider me taking a different approach, because I wanted to make sure that that patient was discharged properly, because I felt a little uncomfortable with discharging her at that time because her family had concerns. Now, some people, when you work in those types of settings, when you challenge a person of authority, it could be seen as you're trying to intimidate them, but it's all on how you present it. So when I presented it to the doctor, that was the action. I explained to the doctor my situation, my concerns. I wasn't undermining his professional decision, but I wanted him to consider other things before he made the ultimate decision. The action that I took was I explained it to him, and what happened was he listened to me and he respected my decision, because at the end I told him that this particular young lady, after meeting with her parents, we felt that it would be best if she would be transferred to a psychiatric facility for new mothers, because she was going through at that time postpartum psychosis. And that doctor thought that she was acting out, but she wasn't acting out. She was actually psychotic. But I had to speak with her family and meet with her family to ensure that this was not this young lady's normal state of mind. The result was that the young lady was able to be transferred to a psychiatric maternity hospital in Chapel Hill, and the young lady lived in that area. She lived in Raleigh. That was a win-win for the hospital, and that was a win-win for the patient, okay? It was a success for the hospital side, because if she would have went home and hurt her infant child, that would have been a situation that we had to face as an organization that we did not want to face. So that's an example of how in an interview, when an employer asks you those types of questions, you have to be able to tell the story in a way where you give them enough information what you did, because usually in those types of settings, whatever the doctor says goes. But I could not allow that to happen, knowing that I felt uncomfortable about that. So that is a good example. So I want you to think about some questions. Think about that in your next interview, a situation, and it does not have to be like in a professional job, like at a hospital. It could be if you're working at Walmart, if you're working at a gas station, where you may have had a situation where you may have had a conflict with a customer or a colleague, break it down so they can understand how you solve conflict on jobs, because that is going to be extremely important. And that is an important part of the interview process. Also, I like to share that when you're interviewing for a job, it is not just about you getting the job. It is also to see if you are a right fit for that organization. Okay. So that's an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I use an example. If you are a parent and you have certain hours that you have to work, you need to learn about their leave policy, because you may have to, if you have a child who may have medical conditions or you are caring for a family member, all of those types of questions you need to ask in an interview in the interview process, because it will see how your life will mesh with your new job. Because the reality of the fact is this: if you're going to be working a full-time job, you're going to be with people for 40 hours a week, okay? And that means you're going to be spending majority of the time working when once you get into the workforce. And you have to ask questions to get an idea of how that will work for you. Now, for me, if I have a job and they say that I have to ever so often go and do yard work and drive a bulldozer, that is not going to work for me, because being outside and driving bulldozers and things like that, that is not something that that I'm interested in. So in the interview, it's always good to ask, tell me about a day. What is it to do this for the day? So they will tell you, okay, 90% of the time you may be doing this, 10% of the time you may be doing that. Those are the times that you ask specific questions. Ask about the leave policy. Ask them the next steps for the hiring process, because you will know exactly what to expect. So if you're looking to get hired from this job, if they say, well, we'll hear from you you'll hear from us within the next week, you will have a better understanding of that time frame. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. All right, so interview summary, you got to expand, you got to share, you got to know, and you got to prepare. All right, it's expanding. Your resume. I recommend that you have your resume, your cover letter, your references, all of those things tangible, any certifications, any type of letters of references, okay? Provide that in the interview. Even if you've already mailed it, you can and give that to the people that are interviewing you, so they can look over and they can have a tangible, something tangible to show your skill set and what you're capable of doing. Okay. Know your strengths, your weaknesses. One weakness. Now I use my weakness as an example. And this is a true weakness for me, because they're going to ask you your weaknesses in the interview. I would say sometimes I have a tendency to bring my job home. That could be a weakness, especially if you are in the human services field and working with people. You have to kind of learn how to draw that boundary, because sometimes when you're working with people, it can spill over into your personal life. And that is a shortcoming or a stronghold for me, is that sometimes I have to draw that line because I don't want my professional life to overspill in my personal life. And that is healthy. Okay. That is healthy. Also be prepared for closing statements and questions after you've been interviewed. At the end, that's when you begin to ask questions, get clarification for advancement as far as moving forward with the position. Those other, questions and things that I had mentioned prior. After the interview, I highly recommend that you send a thank you note or email thanking them for their time. You will be surprised on how that can determine if you get the job or not. You can send a letter, you can send an email, elaborating on the experience and, encouraging them to let them know that you're still interested in the position and that you are looking forward to hearing from them. And that will really, 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 really be a benefit to you in the future when you're seeking employment. Now, if you would like to meet with me and make an appointment so that we can talk more in detail individually about interviewing, I am located in the 300 building. My office is 325. My contact information is listed here. I'm here Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. I'm open now for questions because if I missed something or if you have some questions for me regarding interviews, I am open for discussion. And I'm going to check the chat board and see if anybody said anything. Does anybody have any questions or make any comments? Have any comments that they would like to share regarding interviews?
Now's the time for y'all to speak up. I don't see any questions and any new questions or answers in the
Chat box. Yeah, I don't see anything. Thank you, Winter. I appreciate that. Yes, they do. Prior to working in, now I'm going to say that, Ms. Lynch, if you're working in the medical field, okay, in the medical field, during that time, certain businesses and agencies you can get dinged for having like orange hair, green hair, blue hair, tattoos on your face. When you're going into an interview, I highly recommend that you cover those things up because it could send a message, especially in the healthcare field, because in the healthcare field, because you're going to be providing care to people from a variety of diverse backgrounds. And you can't have wear anything offensive that may be offensive to someone else. So please be mindful of that. Also, nails, hands, nails, all of that needs to be clean. Ladies, I really don't recommend that you wear really long, flashy nails if you're going into the healthcare field, because you're going to be working closely with people and nails can be a hazard. So they're going to be looking for all of those types of things, because if you're looking to work in the healthcare field and you're having long nails and and for the guys, a lot of facial hair, they may see that as a issue because they may not want you to, they may not feel comfortable to say, well, we're interested in hiring you, but you have to cut your nails. So they may give the opportunity to someone else who may have interviewed just as well, but presented with less, with less things that could cause harm as far as the image of the organization. Not to say that having long nails, having certain different color hair is being biased or inclusive, but when you're talking about large organizations, large businesses, different entities in the community, they have to keep, they have to upstain the visual and the physical impression of the company. So they could care less about what you do, when you're not there, but when you're working, you're a representative of that business and their organization. And they would like for you to look professional. Lee Brinkley, appearance is the key.
I got a question.
Okay.
Any recommendations for having confidence during the interview process?
One thing that I like to recommend is that you do your research. If you don't know anything about that organization, you're going in the negative already, because they may ask you specific questions to see how well versed you are about this organization. Because in the back of their mind, they say, if you really want to work here, why and what do you know about us? And that is kind of sort of like the underlying agenda in the interview. What do you know about Halifax Community College? What do you know about Halifax County? What do you know about Northampton County? What do you know about individual? And I'm saying this from my role as a employee of Halifax Community. These were the types of questions. How do you handle an individual who may be? And you have to be able to answer that question, because they're going to, another thing is this: if you're in an interview with multiple people, certain people have different assignments. So someone may say, watch her tone, watch her physical engagement with everyone, her eye contact, because you got to consider the verbal and the nonverbal communication that is displayed. If I'm in an interview and I'm like this, I don't look interested. So a part of building my self-confidence is knowing the organization that I'm working for, understanding the culture, and I like to have a little pep rally. I like to listen to good music. Make sure that you've eaten well and you're well hydrated, because if you're hungry, you're tired, you're thirsty, all of those things is going to come out in the interview, and it's going to, the people who interview is going to notice that, and it could hurt you in that process. Yes, you should. Now, if that could be Michael Brown, I'm answering your question. If you could mention that or ask a question about having accommodations as a part of at the end of the interview. So you can mention if you feel comfortable. Now, if you get in an interview and you feel like this interview is not going well, because sometimes you could get an interview and it's like, oh my goodness, I don't feel comfortable. You could, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, I wouldn't recommend that. But if you do feel comfortable about that, that may be something that you may want to mention, because during the hiring process, when you're going through HR, all of those things have to be in place. it was another question before, Mr. Brown. Yes,
Got it.
your resume. Yes.
Mhm.
Your resume is like your way in. Now, your resume and your cover letter, you have to understand that when you are applying for a position, you're not the only one. Employers receive hundreds, even thousands of people who are interested in, maybe interested in a position. And you have to, in your cover letter, you have to show interest in the position and how you would enhance the business, agency, or organization. You want to elaborate a little bit about your educational background, your professional background, and your skills, and how all of those things will complement you being in that particular position. Okay. Your resume also is a document that gives an overview of your educational background, your skills, your work background, and your abilities. So it will also give your employer a picture of your work history. So they could tell if you have a consistent work history or if you have an inconsistent work history. Now, if you have an inconsistent work history, that may be a part of your interview questions. They may ask, you wasn't working for 6 years. I noticed there was a break from this time to this time. Be prepared to answer those questions. You can elaborate saying, during that time, I was in college, I was working on college, you got married and had kids. Be prepared to talk about those breaks in your work history, because they're going to be curious and wanting to know why you were out during that time. Okay. Does anybody have any more questions? I didn't overtalk y'all today, did I?
Lee wrote down, appearance is the key dress, is key to dressing professional and appropriate. And he was talking about the resume. All skills, certification, education, and work history. Oh, you've already addressed that.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
It's
That's
so
it.
important, y'all. And listen, if you are gifted and you have talents and skills, be confident and show it off, man. I mean, just knowing what you can give and you can offer. You're not going to school in vain, okay? So while you're here at the community college, build those relationships, because you're going to be, especially my early college people, young people, early college, y'all are going to be taken over, okay? And you're in an environment where you can learn how to engage with people from your peers all the way up to people my age, and building those types of relationships, because as you take over the world, you're going to be doing just that. Yes, that's correct, Mr. Hardy. Creating a LinkedIn account is a phenomenal way of getting into the network and getting connected with the professionals that are already doing what you're trying to get to. I want to emphasize that too. The profession that you are really truly interested in, start familiarizing yourself with people who are already doing it, and they can also help you prepare for the profession. The interview is a part of getting into your profession, which is really, 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 really important. But you also have to know how to stay and sustain and maintain integrity while you're in that profession. You just don't want to get the interview. You want to get the interview, get the job, and make change and do whatever you're called to do. Because you can interview well, and Mr. Hardy probably can vouch to this, Ms. Zollicoffer, Ms. Sledge, people can interview very, very, very well, but those soft skills, being career ready is essential for you sustaining and building your career. Because when I started my career back in 1998, I would have never thought that I will be doing what I'm doing now. So what you do, how you start out is going to evolve as you build and you educate yourself and you surround yourself with more people who can empower you to do what you need to do. So workshops like this, staying engaged on campus, is going to evolves you. So you will know what to do in a job interview. You will know how to prepare your resume and cover letter. And like I said, if you would like to actually have a time where we can complete an application together, resume, cover letter, the Career Center in partnership with Student Support Services, Pride K, that area is dedicated for you to ensure that you can get what you need to get done academic wise and career wise. And do you have any questions? Well, I guess I'm done for now. It is 2:47, and I didn't know if Mr. Hardy, Ms. Sledge, Ms. Cooper, or Ms. Zollicoffer had any comments.
I don't have any comments. Wait, I do have one. Karen, what is your last name? So I can give you, you can either put it in the chat.
You're welcome, Ms. Jones. It was a pleasure.
Oh, I need your last name. So
Your
you can
last name,
put it.
Karen Banks. Hey, Miss Banks.
That's it. It didn't come to my head. I'm sorry. Thank you. So we're going to put out a survey, an evaluation survey. Make sure you fill it out and send it out. Send it back to us. I think Laquana, Ms. Sledge is going to sum it up and let us go.
First, I just want to say thanks everyone for attending, and thanks to Ms. Rosser for providing us with such valuable information. And thank you to everybody to getting their questions answered, and also providing feedback and tips as well from their experiences. And that's pretty much it. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up. And yeah, I'll keep it brief. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation, your kindness, and your will to learn more about the interview process, because it's going to be a very important stage as far as you developing you professionally. And hopefully, if you will reach out to me and we can go in further detail. And if there's something specific that area of interest that you specifically want to be prepared for, my information is listed. You can email me, you can call me, and schedule a time where we can sit down and go in more detail.
Not only that, if you need to reach out to Ms. Rosser, you can also get with your student support advisor, because we can get you directly to Ms. Rosser. Remember, we're your support team. With that.